afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Power Up Your Passion. I am your host, Felicia Shanken. We have a great show today. We have a great guest. I say that about all my guests. You know I do, because all my guests are great, right? What can I say? I'm a one blessed person. But today we have a fabulous person on. I want you guys to hear her story. I'm going to read a little bit about her, and then we're going to have Fran tell her story. So Fran, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I am introducing a woman who, if she looked backwards, could feel insecure about being bald or unstable about being paralyzed. But instead, this woman smiles when playing in the dirt and laughs while exercising when sitting down. First time I heard that, never heard that before. Often called Frantastic, Franne McNeal helps entrepreneurs focus their energy for action so they achieve significant business results. A business owner with a Princeton University degree and a pending doctorate from Temple University. Fran is here today to help us look forward and set the 2020 perspectives for your business goals, which is so important. So please help me welcome Franne McNeal, President of Significant Business Results, LLC, and Education Services Director for the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses Program at the Community College of Philadelphia. Fran, again, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me as a guest.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so we heard about Fran, we heard about all about Fran, what she does, everything like that. What I want to know is, who is Franne McNeal?
Who is Franne McNeal? Fran is a very vulnerable person. In fact, today I don't have my normal newscaster speaker voice, and that's because I am missing 2 teeth, and I have a bridge in.
Wow.
So I am working on enunciating, even though there's this plastic thing in the middle of my mouth.
Right. Feels like a thumb's in there, right?
And I think in some ways that's the story of my life. Being me, being vulnerable, and being willing to press on anyway. I remember when I was very, very young, my mother and I were walking through Reading Terminal, and there was a little baby that was not walking by, but being carried by. And I had my little pigtails, as little girls do.
Right.
And that little baby cried when they looked at me. And I thought, Ma. And at that time, I internalized it as they were crying at me because I was a black girl.
Okay.
And I don't know if that was true. I never stopped and asked the little baby.
Right.
But I do think that being a young black girl, being a young black woman, and now being a little more senior in age, in America, race is an issue.
Yes.
And gender is an issue.
Right.
And it can leave you at times very vulnerable because people see what's on the outside, or people hear something and they assume something.
Right.
And so I guess what I share with people is I'm the oldest of 4 girls.
Okay.
I'm used to being ignored because I have 3 younger sisters that always said, "You are not our mother." I've been in corporate America and I've spoken up at the table. And I've heard no one make any comments. Okay. And then I've heard the exact same comments that I've made repeated by a male. And people go, "Great."
Right.
So vulnerability, invisibility, and again, pursuing in spite of that.
Right.
In the intro, you mentioned that I was bald.
Yes.
In my early 40s, when I didn't have health care, I realized at some point I needed to go see a doctor. And when I saw the doctor, she said, "You've got to see a breast specialist." And I thought, really? And then when I went to see the breast specialist, they said, "You have breast cancer."
Wow.
And I was devastated, but I thought, well, you know, how do they really know?
Exactly.
That kind of thing. And then after a series of tests and et cetera, I was told, yes, you do have breast cancer. We need to operate immediately.
Wow.
And I was shocked.
Okay.
So you know, things happen to all of us,
Right.
that make us recognize that we're not invincible. And again, in some ways, I feel like I live in a paradox because, again, going back to as a black girl, as a young black woman, I knew others perceived things of me.
Right.
And yet inside, I had this strength of, I was good in school. I knew what I was supposed to do. I treated people fairly. I wasn't good at sports, so I was always the last one picked. You know, and yet life was difficult.
Wow.
And I sometimes sort of struggled on the outside and had this strength on the inside. And black children, I went to a lot of schools that were predominantly white, and sometimes as a slur or a negative, children like myself were called Oreos, black on the outside, white on the inside.
Right.
And I think in some ways, I've always felt like I've really been an armadillo, tough on the outside, but really soft, and not scared, but I have this outer shell
Right.
to protect something that is very vulnerable on the inside. And I share all this with you because I think all of us have our points of vulnerability, and all of us figure out how to create that shell.
Right.
For some people, it's a shell of meanness. It's a shell of arrogance. And as I've gotten older, I just recognize no matter what's going on in my life, I need to show up.
Right.
So my periodontist and I had a discussion, and she said, you know, are you sure you're okay? And I said, I have two choices. I can go on the show without the dental thing in place
Right.
and have this big gap in my teeth, or I can go on the show and have this uniform look of teeth and probably not have my speech be as sharp as I'm used to. And I said, in either case, it really doesn't matter.
Right.
Because I'm going to go on the show
Right.
and be a guest, be your guest,
Yes.
and share what I need to share.
You
And
know what?
That's what's important.
Exactly. I think that's awesome. And that's one of the reasons why I created this show is because a lot of times you go in these business shows and the first thing they do, they jump in, who your brand, you the brand.
Right. Oh, how perfect the person is.
Right.
Oh, yes.
And the first thing I said to you is I want people to know who Franne is.
Right, right.
And I am so glad that you shared that with us. You didn't have to, but I'm so glad because I didn't even know that about you. And you are right. You have this persona that you, one, do have it all together. That
I'm tough.
Yes,
I will
you're very
acknowledge
tough.
that.
Yes.
I will push through regardless of obstacles. So that is not a persona. That is the truth.
That's the truth.
For good or bad.
Right, exactly. And I love that about you. And like you said, it's so true. We have this outer shell that protects the little girl inside of us because I'm very vulnerable at times too. And life has made me hard. It has really knocked me and made me hard into the person that I am now. And I know a lot of times when I'm talking to my husband, he says to me, well, you know, you have to watch what you say, or you got to watch what you do, or you got to do this. Listen, okay, I've been there, okay? I've been there. So if you're too soft, then you're looked at as being weak.
Right.
If you're too strong, now you're the B word.
Oh, right.
You know?
That makes me mad.
It makes me mad too.
No,
Why do we have to have that label?
No. My mother, who passed away almost a year ago to this day, she actually passed away in March 21st of 2019.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's my father and I and my sisters are sort of preparing for that anniversary.
Right.
And celebrating my mother. And in my book, I write a lot about my experiences with my mother, and I wrote the book many, many years ago. But my mother was a very strong woman, and she had a pride about being a strong woman because she had a husband and she had 4 daughters that she was responsible for. And she came from a very large family, And her mother was responsible with her father for that large family. And so the sense of being strong is something that you do because you need to do.
That's right.
And you are proud of it, not from a prideful sense, but you're proud that you have the ability to set goals, pursue those goals, and take care of others,
Right.
and nurture others. That pride and strength allowed her to nurture us, allowed us to be challenged, to be our best. And I think in some ways, people are encouraged in society to make themselves smaller.
Right.
So that they're not threatened, they're not a threat to others. And
Right.
women are often not only encouraged, but sort of told, make yourself smaller.
Right.
And I'm like, no, that's not gonna happen. Not gonna happen.
And I feel the same way. I'm so glad you said that, because I remember now, for those of you that don't know, Fran and I met a couple years ago.
Yes.
Fran is also on my board of the PWNC Foundation, and I believe that you attract what you are. And I like that she said that, because a lot of people I met that had their own businesses, a lot of them said to me, I toned myself down. I toned my greatness down to please others. And I'm like, oh no. No, you don't. No, you don't. Sometimes you have to be your own cheerleader, you know?
Right.
And the greatness in you is going to be there regardless, and it is up to you to share it with the world. And I think that's why I kind of like adopted you as a mentor, and I kind of just told her, I want you as part of my board, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, you were a great barnacle. I was definitely a ship moving forward, doing my own thing. And I did feel like you were like, hey, kindred spirit, wham.
That's right.
And one of the reasons that there was this sense of reciprocity is that you had follow through.
Yes.
And again, that's something that my parents taught me. It's one thing to say, I'm going to do something, and then it's another thing to take the steps to make it happen.
That's right.
And I saw you doing that. And I said, okay, now wait, if you're going to have the follow through, then I do have an obligation to support you in your success.
Yes.
And to find people who can also support you in your success.
Right,
Yeah.
which is great, you know. I mean, because I feel that while we're on our path, God places people in your life for a reason. It may not necessarily be what you want, but it's what you need. And I needed people on my board that say, hold up, Felicia, that's a great idea, but
Right.
you know, let's look at it from this perspective. And I didn't mind that, because it's in that you grow when you open yourself up and you let people I won't say criticize you, but just show you what your weaknesses are, and that's what you want. But before you answer that question, and before we continue talking about you, we got to take a short commercial break, and we will be back with the fabulous, fantastic.
Thank you,
You're
Felicia.
welcome.
I work 13 hours a day, 6 days a week. So when I'm off the clock, I gotta get stuff done. So when I need a snack, I need something healthy, tasty, and easy to eat. Like wonderful pistachios without the shells. They're protein-powered, delicious, and great on the go. And that's perfect for me.
Thanks, Liz.
A woman without a lot of time.
Whether you're a gourmet cook or just want to eat like one, visit Rostelli Market Fresh, your home for the freshest, locally sourced ingredients to please everyone who loves great food. Our organic meats, quality seafood, and free-range poultry are cut fresh to order. Chefs create culinary-inspired prep foods made fresh every day, which pair nicely with our vast selection of fine wines and spirits. Choose from handmade pastas, artisan cheeses, organic produce, and grocery items, all from the finest purveyors. Rostelli Market Fresh, from our family to yours.
Hey everybody, welcome back. I am your host, Felicia Shanken. This is Power Up Your Passion. Today we are talking to Franne McNeal. before we went on commercial, I asked Franne who was Franne the person, okay? And we got a little bit of background on who she is, and you can see why I feel about her the way that I do. So now we're going to be talking about Franne the brand. So I want Franne to tell you some things that's going on with her and what it is that she's doing.
Sure. On the lower third, you see that my title is Education Services Director of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses Program at Community College of Philadelphia.
Yes.
And that is an opportunity that is really very powerful for myself, for the team at Community College, and for the 539 small businesses that have gone through the program over the last 6 years.
Okay.
And in fact, we have a current cohort, Cohort 21.
Okay.
And there are 30 small businesses in that program, in that particular cohort. So in that role, I, along with the team members, really introduce a very set curriculum that was developed by Babson College and funded by the Goldman Sachs Foundation. And we take small businesses through very important topics, peer-based learning, interactive activities that allow the small businesses who are committed to growth and scaling, that allow them to create a growth plan. And what's exciting about that is that over a period of just 14 short weeks, they are removed from their business for about 100 hours. They interact and learn from other small business owners, and they create this thing called a growth plan. And that growth plan is a template that helps them think about the future and think very specifically about an idea that, if they were to put it into practice, could help them grow their business. And one of the things that's really, really powerful about the process is that as a result of completing the growth plan, if they come up with another great idea somewhere along the line, months after they finish, years after they finish, they've got a technique and a template to kind of activate that idea, decide whether it's feasible, look at the resources, know how to get it funded, and they've got a network of small business owners around the country that they can work with.
Wonderful.
So
wonderful program.
It's a responsibility that I feel very privileged to be have access to, and it's been wonderful to see small businesses in this area grow and prosper. So we've had small businesses from New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and even New York.
Wow.
So that business opportunity really came to me because for the last 40 years, I've worked with small businesses. And when we opened, I talked about, at this stage of my life, kind of acknowledging vulnerability and presenting that metaphor or that image of the armadillo, hard on the outside, soft on the inside, and how a lot of people kind of make themselves small. And over the years, I've found that life doesn't happen the way that you want it.
That's for sure.
And so in 2013, I took the time, after participating in a Lean In workshop and helping actually a woman in New York develop one of the largest first Lean In organized events. And we were featured literally all over the world in the press. I took the time to create my own book.
Wonderful.
Significant.
If we can get a picture of Franne's book up on the screen there, but she has, if you could just, there we go.
Yeah, significant.
Yes. Wonderful.
And I decided to really play on the theme of, in a sense, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade.
Yes.
And instead, alliteration, which is very popular in the Black culture, I decided, okay, so what can I do? And a customer had always called me Frantastic. So I thought, well, it's true. There are times that I'm feeling fantastic, or I fake that I'm feeling fantastic. But there's also times that I feel frustrated. And so how do I move from frustrated to fantastic? How do I take circumstances like finding out I have breast cancer, and then saying, and being told I have to undergo chemotherapy and resisting it, and then saying, well, I will undergo chemotherapy after I've walked 60 miles with the Susan G. Komen Foundation.
Awesome.
And that year that I did that, I thought, well, if I can prepare, if I can walk 60 miles, then chemotherapy should be a snap. Well, sometimes you think things,
Right.
but they don't necessarily work that way.
Right.
It turns out that after the third session of chemotherapy, 4 days later, I had a stroke, which
Wow.
paralyzed me on the left side of my body for 2 weeks.
Okay.
But again,
Yes.
might have been frustrated that I couldn't move. And then after I was moved to the physical therapy unit, within 2 weeks, I was hosting a tea for the whole floor. I was writing lots of thank you notes and making observations about the staff. I was working on my computer. I was doing all sorts of things. And at the following year, the president of Jefferson University Hospital invited me to speak to their staff
Awesome.
and talk about my experience at the hospital.
Okay.
And talk about how the physical therapy team specifically made a difference in my recovery.
Wonderful.
So I think that for me, being significant kind of has 5 phases. Part of it, again, regardless of where you are,
Right.
Get going. You know, set that goal and get going.
Right.
Whatever comes along your way, embrace it as an opportunity. That's sort of point number 2. Accept support.
Yes.
You know,
So important.
there may be, you know, things that you think you can do by yourself, kind of like walking initially. I couldn't walk because I was paralyzed.
Right.
Find love. Find people that are giving you positive energy, and then step up and be significant. And it's interesting, that word significant is one that people often misspell.
You're right.
And so I've thought about it kind of phonetically and broken it up as it's a sign, if, I, can, and then there's a T. And I always think of the T as trust.
Wow.
So, you know, being significant, and I've had the opportunity to create the book in 3 different languages, whether it's French, English, or Spanish, being significant is something that you choose to do. And sometimes it's good as a kind of an inner defense when things aren't working well.
Right.
That it's then important to step up and be significant.
Yeah, and you gave, like, you did a workshop for the PWNC,
Yes,
and
yes.
you gave everyone in the workshop a copy of the book, and I read it. It's an easy read, first of all.
That's the goal.
Yeah, it's an easy read.
1,500 words
Right.
per story. There's
Right.
20
and,
stories.
And I love the cover. I mean, it's just beautiful. It's a
Power
beautiful
pose.
picture of you. Yes, it's a beautiful picture of you with a huge smile on your face. And if someone was to look at this book, they would never know that Franne been through all that she's been through. You know, but this is a great book. So if you guys have the opportunity, it is on Amazon.
It is on
You heard
Amazon,
her say
yes.
it's in different languages. Excuse
Yes.
me. And it's
Got to
full-
be
have to.
lingual.
Have to. And it's full of lots and lots of nuggets. I think anyone that is in business or just life, you know, that they can absolutely relate to this book.
And another reason I did the book is I took the time to capture 20 stories from different stages
Right.
of my life.
Right.
But the feedback that I've received is people find it valuable. 1, it's easy to read.
Yes.
And 2, after each story, there are a series of questions.
Yes.
So if 3 people read a story, then they can sit down and go, so, you know, when's a time when you experience XYZ?
Right.
So it's designed as a dialogue starter.
Yes.
And that has been kind of my mission in life. Even though I work and because I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, part of what I get to do is ask questions.
Yes.
Ask questions and listen.
Yeah.
And this book has a series of questions and encourages dialogue and listening.
Yeah.
And so I do that in many parts of my life, including TV show that I had several years ago called Significant TV, and a radio program that I had. I'm ultimately very curious.
Right.
I am still that little girl that asks why and why not, and what about, and how can we? It's all about the possibilities.
Yes, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I want to ask you, because we're going to be wrapping up shortly, but I do
Sure.
want to get these questions in.
Okay.
So if you could tell me briefly, what is your superpower?
My superpower is asking questions, asking
Okay.
appreciative questions. Tell me about a time when, imagine if, how will you make that happen? So they're questions that get people to think about what worked well,
Right.
what might work well, and how things should work well.
Right, and I love that
Yeah.
because I remember you asking those questions of me when I told her I wanted to start the PWNC Foundation.
Right.
Okay, my next question. What would Fran say to the younger Fran?
Oh, one, I think because I value my parents, respect your parents.
Yes.
Listen to your parents.
Yes.
They will not be there forever.
No.
And ultimately, and I recognize not everyone has both parents growing up, the parent that you have or the grandparent that's a stand-in for the parent, they love you.
Yes.
They care about you.
Right.
They're not perfect, and recognize that they do have your interest at heart.
Right.
And find ways to live up to the best that they want for you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
See, you're going to have me
Yeah.
crying here, Fran.
Yeah.
You're going to have me crying here. I can respect that because I don't have my parents with me any longer. So I always tell my husband, spend as much time with your parents as you can because they
Right.
won't be here always.
Right.
Fran, it was awesome. You were awesome.
Thank
I wish
you.
we had
Thank
more
you.
time. I wish we had more
I
time. But what I
appreciate
want
being
you to
here.
do is look into the camera there.
Okay.
And I want everyone to know how they can get in contact with the fabulous Frantastic.
Sure. Well, you can reach me on LinkedIn. You can just look up FRANNE MCNEAL. I also have a website, FranneMcNeal.com. And if you're interested in being part of the free scholarship program for small businesses, you can contact me through www.ccp.edu/10KSB.
Wonderful. Well, Fran, it was such a pleasure having you here today.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing this platform with me and letting us be a little more into your life. Thank
Sure.
you. So everyone, thank you. We had a fabulous show today, as you heard. So I'm looking forward to seeing you guys back next week, Tuesday at noon. Grab your girlfriends, a cup of coffee, some lunch, and join me. I am your host, Felicia Shanken. This is Power Up Your Passion. Have a great week, everybody. Bye.